Well, thinking in terms of Advent, we're preparing for the Nativity, the birth of Jesus, and that's a very important part. And for Francis, he wanted to do something special in 1223, 3 years before he passed away. He decided to go to a place of Greccio. Now, I have to confess, I don't know why he picked Greccio, but he did. And that's where they had the Christmas scene. And they had a couple of things in particular. He wanted to celebrate Jesus' incarnation, humility, and poverty. And all of those were wrapped up in reliving the birth and the manger and being in Bethlehem. And so he celebrated that with a Mass. And as perhaps many of you are familiar, Francis was not a priest, but he was a deacon. And as a deacon, during that celebration of the Mass, he was able to preach the gospel and also give a reflection, and in particular thought about the humanity of Jesus, his mercy, his gentleness, his being taking care of the poor, and that's one the champion things that Francis did. Now, in thinking in terms of that too, it was really with live animals and the people of the village, and it was a celebration, and they did psalms and they sang songs and celebrated the birth of Jesus. And certainly we'll have that event coming with the Christmas pageant at the Knights of Columbus. So if you're familiar with that, you might want to keep that in your schedule as well. Now, just as fate had it, I did go to Bolivia to learn to speak Spanish. I have to confess I was not successful at being able to do that, but one of the things, like Francis, I was a deacon. And it was on my responsibility as a deacon to read the gospel, in Spanish of course, and I did that, and I read the gospel for Christmas Eve in 1979, and while we were there, I moved off to the side, and we had live animals, and in particular we had one was a mule, and I think the mule was used to carry the person that was acting as the Blessed Mother, and she took her place, and they had a live baby that was there in the manger, reenacting as best they could for people to visually see. Well, one of the downsides of that was I was paying attention to the music, and I was watching the events going on, and then mule got a little nervous, and one of the young youth group members, a young lady of about 16 years old back in 1979, grabbed me by the habit and pulled me out of the path. The mule began to kick its two hind legs backwards, and I was standing right in the target zone, and she actually saved me from getting a major injury. But that tradition was carried back into Francis's time in 1223. And so that event, if you look in the Mass, project ahead, 2023 is not far away, and that would be the anniversary of the very first Christmas crib that Francis created. And again, it was seeing incarnation, humanity, mercy, generosity of spirit, and taking care of the poor. Those are all events that were championed by Francis. And so I hope that you have a very prayerful Advent, and with that, a very Merry Christmas.